Alrighty then.
How do you pronounce your name?
My name is Caelan.
Yeah.
I'm coming here to you guys to present about my fintech startup called compviz.biz. And these are going to be on topics of ETL and a GUI/web framework that I'm building. So a little bit about myself, my background. I'm actually not a software engineer like probably all of you are and everything like that. My background is in applied mathematics and economics of business. And I'm currently at Georgia Tech pursuing my master's in analytics. And I do all that because my main line really is algorithmic trading for a family office in Rochester and such. So I do have a lot of technological experience because we deal with a lot of information and data every day. And as such, it requires computer programming in order to handle everything. Is that a microphone?
That's microphone.
Okay, cool. So I decided, to start a business called CompViz, where I wanted to take all of this information and background that I'm going through with the family office and create a business that is about delivering financial reports to small businesses and startups in very qualified ways, real insights rather than just like grifters you may see on Instagram or TikTok or something like that. So this is what the main problem is that a lot of small businesses don't actually have a lot of tools available to them to make really good decisions, especially like what big firms on Wall Street have and everything like that. And so you can see some of the statistics here is that a lot of them fail and a lot of them are, suffering from like a high inflationary period, as well as from just being unable to have the necessary tools for them to make decisions and everything like that. So my solution was to, initially, I wanted to do student consulting where they take the reports, static files, that is, and have them one-on-one sit down, like I'm sitting down here with you guys, explaining how well they can improve their business's financials. And what I'm realizing is that it's not quite what people want because they're faced with a lot of problems every day and they have to jumble all of that together, and to have the time to really sit down and get to know somebody, well, that's quite difficult. So what I'm doing is transitioning into a SaaS in order to better provide them a simple tool that they can use in order to better their business. So here's like the overall framework for the company and everything like that. We gather the financials of the business. We then combine that with OSINT and closed-SINT, that's closed source intelligent information. And then we generate that into reports that are more oriented towards actual real information and more than just like run-of-the-mill QuickBooks Performance Center and stuff like that. So yeah, why the SaaS? I really wanted to keep it low tech and low cost. A lot of existing consultants, they can charge a pretty penny, so to speak, when you are asking for good financial advice. And that's because they have decades of experience. They definitely earned it. You get what you pay for. However, the technology is caught up to the point where it is sufficient to build a tool and deliver it straight to their computers in a meaningful way at a cost-effective value. So here is what the data structure of the company itself is here. Over here on the left, you have like fundamental, technical, and alternative data. So fundamental data, that's like your business's revenues, expenses, classic GAAP, generally accepted accounting principle metrics. And then I also included technical, which is pricing data. Pricing data is very important for analyzing financial information because it's telling you what the market believes about whatever it is you're buying and selling there. And then also alternative data. So I gave one example as web traffic, but that includes a myriad of things like survey information, satellite data. I've never actually seen someone successfully using satellite data.
That's a very specific industry.
It is oil and gas, looking at the refineries.
Agriculture.
Yeah. And then what I'm also doing is crossing that into like a small and big framework of microeconomic and macroeconomic so that you can get granular information as well as overarching concepts.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
So like, who are the customers again?
Small businesses.
So like any small business?
Correct.
Okay, all right, gotcha.
So these are some of the data characteristics. These are very small sentences, but they are actually very big problems. There are dozens of standards from the various sources that I draw from. Some of it's government, some of it is private surveyed information and everything like that. And they all have different qualities to how well they collect that information. There's many errors throughout all of it. That comes from data transfer errors as well as from input errors, where sometimes a company may input the information incorrectly, sometimes on accident, sometimes on purpose. A little example is that Lyft, they were, ride sharing company. And then one of their recent earnings reports, they accidentally reported a dramatic increase in their margins by like 5.5%. And it was actually only something like 0.5%, but that little decimal point there was really bad. Yeah.
Details.
But stuff like that happens to me all the time where someone's saying they have like $1 trillion in revenue or something. And I'm like, okay, that's not supposed to be there. So I have to clean that out, if you will, and such. I'm also dealing with many time frames. We call them vignettes, where different points of capture of the information gets updated continuously, but they also want to keep what they captured in that moment because it's sometimes valuable to look back and say, okay, what were the differences in collecting the information during those times? And so you have to make sure that you're loading the correct version, if you will, of the information. And then there's also a lot of query and storage limits. Some of the information I deal with is to the size of petabytes, zettabytes. I don't know, like maybe the exact metric, but it's definitely way up there and such. And because a lot of people care about where their money's going, so they spend a lot of time to collect that information and make sure they know where it is. So I'm going to get now into the framework of extraction, the ETL process. Starting here, I've been using Python to connect a lot of these sources, specifically even like the accounting softwares that many small businesses use. And you're going to see this a little better in the next diagram slide here. But the extraction happens on demand, where I need to query their database coming from their accounting software, the small businesses, nearly as soon as they swipe their credit card. So I got to get the ball rolling and generating the reports and everything like that. And I'm trying to get it set up through an API and everything like that through there are several accounting softwares like QuickBooks, ZeroX, and they all have, integrations I can connect to and such. So for like the financials of a small business, I need to use those. And then there are other things that I need to like web scrape off of to get valuable information that isn't right there in a, standard database, like Google Trends, all the APIs that maybe some of you guys might have connected to see like, hey, what are people talking about on the internet? None of that is actually an official Google API. So you have to spend a lot of time, building a wrapper around, their web platform to actually query it and such. And they break it all the time because they don't like it when people, bog down the service, web scraping the data. So I'm getting a lot of 429s from that. So I always try and find something that already exists, an SDK that I can connect to, use, something that someone has spent all that work doing. Why do I need to reinvent the wheel? And I also, for like community libraries, but sometimes I got to build my own.
What's the HTTP?
That's but it's an R package and also a Python package that's used to query APIs like JSON and everything like that.
So you're doing this for small businesses and for probably, it spans all the kinds of different industries. You have to do a lot of custom work probably for all these data sources, depending on the customer. So like every single customer, you're probably doing some custom work for.
So I'm actually not trying to do custom work.
Okay.
So I'm doing a standardized version, and you're going to see that right here. So what I'm doing on the left is I am connecting to various accounting softwares and such using Python, just because R is not suited at all for a networking application. And then over here on the right, what you see is R, and that is actually connecting to currently the data sources. And I'm going to update that so that it's actually a stronger blend between the two programming languages and everything like that. But over there on the right, what we have is macroeconomic data on the top. that comes from Fred. They query tens of thousands of metrics that people use to try and evaluate the economy. And then far off to your right, there is the SEC's government database that contains like 12,000 publicly traded companies.
Like 10Ks and.
Correct, yes,
Stuff like
10 Qs, yeah.
Yeah.
And then, also Google Trends. What I'm doing here is I'm signifying macro, micro, and alternative data.
Are you using R because that's what you're like more comfortable with?
Correct, yes.
So you use it where you can.
Yes, so it also is suited for the transformation aspect, where I can use a lot of the statistical and financial packages in R to do the analytics.
Okay.
It's for sure better than Python with that stuff.
Yeah. So in your software world and everything like that, right? Software engineering, the transformation part of the ETL process is really about cleaning and actually making sure that the data transfer happens. And so I'm using like polars, pandas, and data.table to use frameworks to actually transfer all this information, everything like that. But in my like finance brain and everything, I actually think of it as more of doing the analysis. And then I would then later load it into a chart or visual for someone to look at. So there is obviously a difference in definition there. I just wanted to call it out so that we're all on the same page and such. I don't actually maybe necessarily care about like optimization of this data packet and how quickly it transferred or anything like that. I just want to make sure I have the data. And what I do care about is making sure that the metrics have come over. And so being able to easily access all those databases, I use these free packages and such to make sure that it all comes together here. And then, yeah, as I just said, I use the R package for financial and statistical analysis that isn't available in Python. Yeah. So here is the transformation. What it currently presently is I'm actually using a spreadsheet to like manually transfer over this information into,
Nice.
yeah, I know, into
Spreadsheets running the world.
my program.
Certainly financial world.
It's killing me, it really is. Over into data table, which is R's version of pandas polars. And also, gathering that information. And then what I'm also in the process of doing is upgrading it using Python to actually query these existing software's APIs to get that information, use polars to bring it over to my computer, my servers, if you will, and combine that with also the financial data that I'm gathering so that then we can like generate real reports and such.
So, but like, does data table have a database or a state or like?
Data table is like SQL.
Oh, it is.
It also does function as a state, if you will, where you have data structures from data table.
Okay.
But I use the R structures like .rda, .rds, and it facilitates the transfer of information between like those kinds of storage.
That's your
locations.
intermediary between Python and R, or?
Yes, so maybe that's not clear. I'm going to use both tangentially. Okay. And then I'm going to probably load them into Postgres later on, which I'm about to show in the loading section. So it's currently set up where the information is being loaded into a static file that contains some plotly charts and everything like that. What I'm doing is updating it to a Django framework in order to have a dynamic aspect more than just like what the static file would have, where it's able to load things as maybe the business owner wants it. So if like the business owner wants a custom feature where they say, I want this specific macro variable aligned with this micro variable, would you please allow for that to happen? Then that's where this Django framework's coming in to give that custom aspect.
But that would be just for that client, not for the general
Well,
database.
I'm trying to build it so that any user would have that ability.
Oh, be like self-service, like they can,
Right.
okay.
And
Yeah.
so it's like a lot of the data, because you were talking about like pricing data and stuff. So you're talking about like pricing data, like stock market pricing data?
Yes.
That's the main data source. So you have like one primary stock market data source basically. for
Um,
stuff.
So what I want to do in the future, and what I'm also currently working on for the real estate, is a web scraper that allows for you to access the various online companies, products and services, and be able to use that information. So that would require like a massive product list.
That's a lot of work.
Yeah, it is. No, I know. I'm not actually, doing it all day, every day or something like that. When I scale this, that would be something that I would be looking into. But yeah, like I currently do it for looking at Home Depot and Lowe's specific products and everything like that we use to help construct real estate. And I want to then translate that into a larger pricing database and everything. So yeah, then once I get all this information together, I bring it into visuals, and like a web framework that will be aimed at financial planning and analysis. How many people know that term? Yeah, one. Okay.
Financial planning and analysis?
Yes, FP&A is the shorthand of it, but
Okay.
it's mainly what like accountants and financial analysts use in order to understand a specific business, and also like plan it out, build out, what a project would look like, what the actual overall business would look like, and revenues and cost structures. So here in the loading diagram, we have Python and we have R coming together to bring this information into a Postgres server, which I'm using in order to store some information and everything like that. That's like an overall goal.
Are you still talking about like petabyte scale?
No, of
Okay.
course, right. That is where a huge problem lies, where, how do I actually build it so that I can, query this information easily, bring it and deliver it to the client, but also don't try and like duplicate all this data for no apparent reason. I'm still looking into that and everything. And if you have some ideas, right, come with them and such.
Well, I'm
But
sure like AWS has something for this. I know Google has like BigQuery, which is just like, okay, you know that.
no, I don't. No,
Okay.
but that's I heard
Yeah.
query. Yeah.
I
Yeah,
mean, you could store low resolution data, like you could store Gaussians for sections of time, for example. That's
Okay.
that's a simple example, right?
Yeah,
You literally just store like, this is what the price was in this range, with this volatility. So, but there's probably unlimited ways
Yeah.
to do that though.
Yeah, and then eventually that would be loaded into the Django web framework and such, which is using Plotly to give an interactive visuals that people can use and such. So here's like a little small ETL marketing example that I was creating. I wanted to stop posting on social media, so I was like, I'm just automate it, right? So I looked into it and everything. I got as far as like OpenAI is, providing content for me that I can then post on the internet, and I mix that with my visuals. So like it is providing some baseline analysis that people can read and everything like that. And then I let it arrive. Okay.
We
Um,
gotta go.
You can keep that.
okay, yes. So I spent all that time working on it, which didn't take me much at all. But I realized that the anti-botware for a lot of like Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram is really powerful, and to spend all that time just working against it to try and make sure that a headless browser is able to log in to Facebook, Instagram, and post this information. This isn't worth it at all. So I'm sure you're all familiar with that little quote there. It came out during the pandemic, right? Never spend 6 minutes doing something by hand when you can just automate it. Spend 6 hours failing.
You say you're not a software developer, but this is like classic software developer. Like, this is what we do in our free time.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So yes, talking a little bit about what I'm trying to load this into. Originally, I was like, oh, well, this is a GUI, right? And then I looked on the internet, and apparently GUI is actually like a desktop application. And what I'm trying to go for is a web app. It's a desktop application would be widely impractical for this platform to try and make.
For most things these days.
Oh, okay.
You need a good reason for it to not be a web app.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. The data is scattered to the four corners of the globe, and to ETL that off of a desktop application, try and like rely on their kind of hardware to do that kind of work, it's just not worth it at all and everything. Other common problems like I want people to be able to look at this on their phones and, on the go, be able to make business decisions or such, or that which would be really helpful. Like if you're at a presentation, you got to quickly check out what your numbers are, more than just like what the standards are out there. And I'll show that in a second. Yeah, single version, client-side security, all that kind of jazz, which I don't know much about, but I know of. So why am I, using Python and such? Its status as a network application is really powerful. I mean, the ability to actually program into multiple different integrations, like R doesn't really have that so well. I mean, they do have some things and such to try and like baseline connectivity, but it's actually pretty limited. And there's not a lot of R developers. So that's like the second point I have there. Python is widely taught, and a lot of people all over the world are learning the language. So, for me to like, say I want to design this company and everything like that, I want to get a bunch of R programmers together to build it. We're going to be very limited in the capabilities that we have in order to deliver this information. So that's why, Python is actually really great for this topic. And if you ever go to like an R or Python data science networking event or anything like that, there's always that argument between the two, like football teams, like Python's better than R is better than Python, blah, blah, blah. I'm very language versatile. I don't care what I'm using as long as it works and it works well for me. So I'm not.
Great tool for the job.
That's right. Absolutely. I have only so much time to get all this done and to spend time, relearning a language or anything like that.
If you're like doing this in your free time, you got a main job working for the family office.
Yeah. Right. This is something that I'm building as a side project, if you will. And I've gotten quite far. I'll show that in a second as well. So yeah, being able to use Python in order to like use some of these existing frameworks and GUIs like PyQt, Tkinter, to actually develop something that's really nice. R is terrible at it. I've seen some people like develop chess matches or whatever in it, and I'm like, why would you do that? They're like, because we can. And I'm like, whatever. Yeah, and I settled on Django just because that seems like that's one of the widely used applications out there. Instagram, Venmo, they've all developed off of it as well. Some people have been recommending something like Django Ninja, which I guess is a faster variation of it, something that's apparently simplified things, but
Very simple.
yeah. So here is an example of what like QuickBooks is providing to you when you are looking at your financials and evaluating how well you're doing against your industry benchmarks and everything like that, which it's just terrible. I mean, it's just not a lot of information that's being gleaned. And it's also not like incorporating a lot of aspects that would matter for this kind of this chart here, right? So, and then here is just a little sample of what is one of the charts that I'm doing here. I'm going to talk a little bit about Plotly before I actually get into the program. So Plotly is one of the visualization, plotting software or plotting packages out there for Python. It's very interactive. It's very pretty. I have familiarity with it. So there was a decision point a couple years back where it was high chart or Plotly. And quite honestly, I don't remember why we chose it.
Plotly's good.
Plotly,
Yeah,
right. It might have been the ability to load things in. It might have been that a lot of people were using it as well, and we wanted flexibility.
It's all in 6 1, half dozen another.
Absolutely right.
Whatever works.
Yeah. So yeah, we settled on Plotly as part of like some of the visualizations that I built within that company. And so yeah, I wanted to just speak a little bit highly to it. I'm going to show you guys, what it actually looks like there. And then just speaking to like what a different framework be better. Maybe instead of Django, I use like Flask or Dash and then Plotly. Maybe I'm going to just continue going on one path. I don't need to actually spend all that time.
We could really have the conversation though, if you do want to.
Oh, yeah.
We'll
You have lots of opinions around.
We'll talk your ear out.
Okay. Yeah, so and then here, like this is the website and such where I'm like initially hosting things so that people could look at it and everything. If you guys wanted to just quickly check it out, I should probably actually, yeah.
Let's DDoS it.
You can have fun with dealing with Wix then, I don't care. They handle all the network security, not me. But yeah, I was gonna run through the sample report that's on the site so that you guys could check it out here. I have it locally stored on my computer because, who wants to actually do a demo where you're, worrying about the internet and such? That's dangerous.
Smart.
Yeah, oh yeah. All right, so, yeah, it's very clunky and ugly. But essentially what's happening here is tabs are giving you access to different data sections, which then you can look into more specific categories for more specific ratios to then get to like actual trends and everything like that. So I'll just run down one of the profitability ratios. So this is an example for a hotel. All right. And we wanted to identify what's like the industry leader there and how well are we comparing against it. So Jim's B&B here is like the small business client. And here the industry leader is CHH, it's just a hotel chain on the stock exchange and everything like that. They actually have great profit margins and such. And so, if you're a small business, you obviously don't have funding and access to what a large corporation is going to have. However, you are competing against them. And as such, you need to be mindful about what their numbers are, what their cost structure and revenues are looking like, so that you can also make more informed decisions in how you price your hotel's offerings, especially if there's one of them right down the corner. Okay. So, here you can get like a direct comparison between these two hotels and everything like that. Maybe there isn't like a CHH right down the corner, but maybe there's like a Hilton Honors such. And so your ability to then like evaluate how well their profit margin is doing against yours is going to help you in setting your price point for what you want to charge your hotel for. Just a little side detail here. You'll notice that like Jim's B&B is very flat and H is very jagged. There's like accounting nuances and everything that are going on here and such. I could probably smooth that line out with like a log transformation or something and get it so that it's just an easily comparison and everything like that. But I really wanted to provide people with like specific insights to how well they're doing. So if Jim's B&B is like 2nd out of 7 in the net profit margin, that's actually really good in terms of they're making money and they know how to service their customers and everything like that. But maybe their gross profit margin drops down to 3rd. And maybe that's because, they have a supplier for the bed sheets that's charging them too much money or something like that. So, yeah, having this kind of information to then look into more specific aspects is very important. And what, other companies can do and use and such. So, yeah, the other aspect of this that I wanted to do was start comparing expense categories to other businesses and such, and give them the ability to like look at how well other companies are doing so that they can really evaluate, are they actually doing great on advertising spend, or are the other companies spending more on advertising and actually achieving like a higher revenue structure or something like that. So, those kinds of insights and such, and their ability to evaluate things is very important and something that isn't being serviced right now. So then, yeah, this is simulated data. I don't actually have enough clientele to put their, advertising spend right up there and such and say, hey, this is, what they're spending in advertising. You should just copy their model. People don't want that at all, right? Industry secrets are important. So this is going to be anonymized and such. And people are going to be able to see like how well other businesses are doing without actually giving away the sauce, so to speak. So here, this is like a macroeconomic example. The aggregate hotel profit margin for the industry is actually trending upward, while consumer expenditure in the percent change of how much that's increasing, as well as what the producer price index for the hotels are, that's actually also slowing down. So here, if you're a small business owner, what you'd want to do is compare the PPIs decreasing over this time frame and noticing like, hey, hotels are actually seeing their producer pricing index, the costs to running a hotel, they're falling and such, and they're actually elevating their profit margins. If that's not happening to your hotel, that's when you like need to have that information and make that change, which isn't necessarily going to be clear in your day-to-day operations. A lot of small business owners get wrapped up in that stuff. And so being able to like provide them with that information in a holistic view, that's important. And then here's some like alt data. I just cobbled together a small example where if you wanted to like advertise on Reddit or something and you wanted to, advertise your hotel on the travel subreddit, right? People are talking about hotels more than they are about Airbnbs on that travel subreddit. So that would actually probably be beneficial to you and where you're like allocating your advertising dollars and such. And so, speaking again to like the custom solutions, I mean, is every company going to need to know, what the Reddit comments are for our travel? No, not necessarily, but I'm hoping to incorporate the flexibility of this program to query that information from these, like databases and everything like that, and load it into an application for them to like make decisions and such. All right, that concludes my presentation there.
So what did you do to get the comments on Reddit? In these two
Scraped it.
subreddits?
Did you
I know.
scrape it?
No.
Build your scraper?
So there's actually
Yeah.
an R package called Reddit Extractor, which provides that information for you. I was not scraping Reddit, no.
Wait, it's not scraping for you?
So to be honest, it could be using the unofficial, like it could be a web scraper that's like masked as an API. I never actually looked at the source code or anything like that. Reddit does have an API, right? People use it. They actually
all right, it's just-
near shot it in the foot a couple of months
Yeah.
back and everything. So I think it's still up and running. Honestly, I just didn't care enough to check.
I feel like as a business owner, you need to understand the, whatever.
The technical
no.
intricacies of how
The reliability of your data source.
Yeah.
Oh, sure.
exactly.
Yeah, no, of course. Right, yeah, no, I agree with you
No,
and everything like that. Yeah,
But there's gonna be shit.
yeah.
Yeah.
The R group is pretty on top of things when they're checking what the packages, it's like it's better than pip, okay? For evaluating, what packages are actually doing and
That's not a bird nest. That's like the big problem, Python.
Yeah. CRAN stands for like the central repository. It's run by like a bunch of old dudes and they love doing it.
Mhm.
I'm saying they're old in that they're experienced and have a lot of wisdom. Not that that's a bad thing that they're old or anything like that. They've been doing this for like decades and decades, and they are very good about what goes on their platform.
What about your other charts, like the consumer price index and that? Was that real data?
Yes.
Okay.
So over here, the macro data, that's real. That comes from Fred. They have tens of thousands of metrics to query from.
That's awesome.
That's the government. Okay. Yeah. I don't need to worry about them really. More so than like, what SDK I took from the internet to get that information. And then like the financial ratios that comes from the publicly traded companies themselves, what they report to the SEC, which then puts into a database called Edgar. And they use like XML to transfer that information because a lot of them use Excel spreadsheets and such, and that's a good programming language to facilitate that transfer. And then I query that directly from Edgar and such.
So what's the most important data set that you don't have access to, that you can't automate access to right now?
Yeah, that's a good question. Probably I would say, the social medias. People, do a lot of stuff online, and I want to be able to build a part of the report that is able for them to get more insights into social media, so how they can actually sell more stuff online and everything like that. This isn't just for brick and mortar. This is also for like online stores and companies and
So
such.
you want to do like sentiment analysis? or
Correct.
something like that?
Yeah. And like actually, see what kind of, what people are talking about when they're talking about your product. That kind of data is very valuable in economics because it's telling you, do people like your stuff and want to buy it, or do they hate you and want to go to your competitor? Getting that information is very difficult, hard, tricky, especially because a lot of social medias don't allow access to their APIs. Like LinkedIn totally can theirs. And yeah, finding like the job networks and such, that was very valuable for quite a long time, but
I would see what if you're trying to get sentiment on a product or something like that, right? But it's social media, right? So like the negative sentiment is gonna be overwhelming, right? So you wanna see, you wanna.
people
you wanna
complain
normalize
when
that.
they want to complain, yeah.
Well, but if you're going to speak out, you're more likely to speak out
Yeah.
if have a complaint than if
Yeah.
you feel good about something.
So, but you have to normalize that, right? The sentiment on social media, right? And so like what goes into normalizing, like this is your average sentiment on social media, right? Like whatever, terrible, like that's your baseline for it. So if it's a better than terrible. Then you're doing well.
There's also a lot of bot traffic,
Yeah,
dead internet theory, blah, 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 whatever.
Yeah.
There's so many fake reviews that you have to standardize the query for to like say, okay, that's not actually a real comment or anything like that. And that's dramatically increasing because of
yeah.
people like me who are saying, hey, I want to use OpenAI's ChatGPT to just start posting on the internet. There are people that are far more successful than me in that endeavor and everything like that. And it's not to say that I couldn't do it, but again, just maintaining the anti-botware, that'd just be annoying.
Detecting if it's made by a chat, like an LLM, is really
Yeah,
not a solved problem.
especially because that's non-deterministic. So how can you develop a deterministic model to like say, hey, is this fake?
There are
right?
plenty of people trying to sell products to do it, but it's, it's not.
But they have, don't they have like, you can check, like you can go to OpenAI and say like, did you write this?
Yeah, you can do it for a specific model.
But you don't
Okay.
necessarily know about
Yeah.
it.
Yeah, like, can you do it
Yeah,
also
I
for
see.
Claude and,
That makes sense.
And Mistral and, yeah.
home baked, like
Yeah.
fine tuned
Yeah.
llamas and stuff
Yeah.
like that.
A lot of teachers are running into that problem where it's like,
Yeah.
hey,
Yeah,
can
no,
I
this is
use-
like, exactly. If it was a solved thing, believe me, all educational institutions would be subscribing to whatever the company was that had
Yeah.
a fix for it.
Yep. Do you guys have any other questions about the specific program, product, anything?
So, you showed like visually that you have R and Python kind of interacting with each other. How separate is that? How integrated is that?
So there's actually just released something from R Studio, which is now called Positron.
Okay,
And that is an IDE that facilitates rapid transfer between these two languages for that data and everything like that. They just released it like 2 weeks ago. There were some existing facilitations for that in the IDE for R called R Studio. It was super clunky and like annoying to deal with. So they've actually just like said, here you guys go. This is going to be super simple for you. We know both data scientists are using both languages. Both data scientists and financiers are using both languages. So this kind of thing is going to alleviate that burden. Get rid of it.
so, but before that, for what you put together.
Yeah.
Are you basically just outputting data and then inserting the data from both sides?
Yeah, so
If they're not really interacting?
Like, is it just Postgres in the middle and then you're just like write to Postgres, read from Postgres, write to Postgres, read from Postgres?
so there actually isn't a Postgres server
Yeah.
currently.
Oh, yeah.
I could show you what it kind of looks like.
Because that's a great use case for Postgres.
Yeah,
Yes.
So what is Positron then?
it is an IDE
Oh, I can join. I
for,
was gonna make a physics joke, but it won't work.
yeah, they named it after some electron thing that I don't know. I'm not in any
Oh,
way.
okay, yeah, it was annihilate.
Hide the floating meeting controls. There we go. Okay, so yeah, I could just show you a little bit. Like I can actually use Python right into the IDE here for R. I'm sure you guys probably all use something like Visual Studio or whatever. That facilitates
I
pretty
do
easy.
not.
Okay, all right.
Oh, there's a lot of people who just, that's it.
Yeah, I know.
Vim,
Yes.
Yeah, so like if I wanted to actually just start using Python in like a markdown file, I would just change that R to that Python. Zoom in there so you guys can actually see it.
so you're doing like a literate programming thing.
Right, and so I can just do like 1 equals A or something, or A equals 1. And that, that's actually going to run reticulate, which is the bridge between R and Python and such, and is actually going to transfer the data into Python and everything. So yeah, they work alongside each other, and
This is the IDE that you were talking about, Positron?
This is actually our studio.
This is our studio.
Yeah, I haven't made the switch yet because they're still working out a lot of the bugs for it. Yeah.
What's happening here? You specified it was Python and then you said equals 1. Does it mean that you can use the variable A in another block of code?
Yeah, can you use the A,
all?
can you use
Yeah,
the
yeah,
A and
yeah.
R underneath?
So not quite.
Oh, that would be
Okay.
sick.
Yeah.
Okay.
But you can, it just takes a lot of hoops to jump
Okay.
through that I don't want to do right now. Like I think right down here, like I type pi a and then it would yeah,
No.
it's not that pi would be the object here. I don't remember off the top. I don't try and mix them for the exact reason you're describing it, that it's really hard to run them together. Positron is solving that, but it is something like where I am attempting to just use. That is how it's done. I just don't remember off the top of my head why it's not working right now. Perhaps I need to make the switch in my console or something like that if I wanted.
Wait, so then where, like you said, you're not using Postgres, so you like dump it to, you said you're using spreadsheets, so you like
It's currently
PyXL or whatever. and
No, I
dump it to
don't-
Spreadsheet or.
it's actually what it does. It just queries all the information as it needed right then and there.
But queries from what?
The database is like Edgar, Fred,
Oh.
and then
Okay,
it puts
so
that
you're
into the static
using public-
file.
Public sources. and
Yeah.
then- Okay, gotcha.
Yeah.
So
and it-
you're generating your HTML
Correct.
and okay, so it's all just
Yeah,
static.
so,
It's all static.
no,
Yeah. Well, it's dynamically
Got it.
generated static pages.
okay,
Yeah,
I get it.
that's a good way to put
So-
it, right?
If you didn't do anything in 3 months from now,
Mhm.
would those plots go and continue, or do you need to like recompile and regenerate everything and deploy your website again?
He's pulling from the public data.
Well,
data
no,
sources.
but you're saying that,
Do you want to see what like the HTML code of the static
How
file
do you
looks like?
generate when does the HTML code get generated?
Pull up the backend. Let's.
This is the back end right here. It's
Oh,
actually
this is-
prototype report. I should-
but like, if I make a web request, am I hitting this code?
So there isn't a web request right now. That's, yeah.
Well, there's
There-
the thing you showed on your local computer where you had the plots.
Yeah, that's actually an HTML file that I email to people and such, yeah.
Oh,
Okay, got it.
Yeah. But it does offer dynamicisms and such
Yep.
that you
Yeah.
can use to
Yeah.
like, actually better understand your business a
So-
little bit, yeah.
Okay.
So that's what I meant when I said it's a static file.
So you literally email an HTML file and like your customers know how to open that?
So it should default open
Yeah.
to like a web
Okay.
browser.
Yeah, you can just
Yeah.
double click on it and it
Okay.
opens.
It'll open it.
I'm just
yeah.
using the terminal.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
I don't have double clicks.
I did run into the problem where I was
There is
texting.
this thing called a GUI. They got little icons.
It's like VI, report.html, and then I'm trying to read it.
Sure, so, yeah, if it's in like, your file explorer, you just double click it, it's literally,
Okay.
it's just
All
gonna
right,
open up.
okay.
That's pretty sad.
Have you heard about Power BI or Tableau?
Yeah, they're,
Did you consider it to use?
I wouldn't, no. I don't like them because they're super clunky. I worked for a company 2 years ago where we were using Power BI and I was like trying to code things in DAX
Yeah.
to, automatically query all that information. So it was just really like
It's too
the syntax
high
of the language was
Yeah.
too
Learning Postgres
What?
is like something that you could take with you for the rest of your career
Yeah.
possibly.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
That's probably.
Yeah, SQL is super important.
I have been using it for that company. We were using it for SMSS or something like that. Microsoft.
SSMS.
Yeah, I don't remember the acronym, but I also use it for the real estate and such, where we maintain a Postgres server of our data that we use for like the tenants and everything like that.
Yeah.
What goes into the business operations there. So I'm familiar with it and such. Like I can show you like the ERD for the Postgres server and such that I made off of diagram.io or whatever it's called, but so to answer your question a little bit more, Power BI and Tableau, they're very rigid and their clickings around, like they're very click-based. You actually have to click and drag. I much prefer to program it, parameterize it so that it's, doing it over and over again. And I'm able to then edit that parameter for when those data sources that I use from Fred change, and I have to then change things on my end to query that information. That's a lot harder in those software frameworks and everything like that.
Repeatability.
Yes.
So do you mainly use Python just for like with Plotly for visualization?
Yeah, this is actually, this is an R markdown file, so R is using Plotly
Nice.
to generate these,
Okay, oh, right,
plots and
so
everything
it's
like that.
primarily a markdown translation thing where you dumps out
Right.
HTML at the end, so using like, okay, yeah, R markdown, not,
Yeah.
but like Pandoc type thing.
Right, so, to answer your question there, yeah, I want to change that so that it's using Python and such, so I can get a team going to actually develop this more into what would necessarily be like an actual software and such. I'm a one-man jam band over here, dealing with this kind of data and trying to like set up the back end and the front end for it to handle all that information is super difficult. It's a lot of information to work with. The resources alone are pretty intensive and everything like that.
Are you
And
running this all off your laptop?
yeah. But like if I wanted to like get like 100, 1,000 customers, right?
Right.
That's not gonna be
No, that-
feasible,
no.
of course. And yeah, I also have like a server rig at home and everything like that for what I use personally. But that right, when I want to scale it and everything like that. Right now the business is like in the discovery phase, trying to figure out the product. I mean, I had a grant, there's a student running around like asking people, hey, how does this look, kind of thing. And you know, he goes to networking events, he shows them this kind of work, and he says, hey, do you find this useful? And they give me feedback, and I, you know, make the changes as need be to try and get something that will be willing to pay for.
So you talk about using Postgres and Django in the future. Are you
Mhm.
going to try to take that on yourself? Are you looking to like, have an employee by that time?
Yeah, I'm definitely looking at all options there. If I were to do it myself, maintain the current workload that I maintain, it'd be quite difficult. I also don't have that background. I don't have a comp sci degree or anything like that, so I don't have those years of experience working with these kinds of applications. I can go into them, understand them. You know, the tangent I like to draw here is like, if you're speaking foreign languages, hello, ni hao, bonjour, right? I just said hello in several different languages. I like to take that, say that's the same thing for computer languages. All programming languages have loops, right? All of them have data structures that you got to use. So yeah, I can go in, I can build this myself. It's going to take probably 2 years or something like that. And that would be with rigorous maintenance of it. I do a lot of other stuff that I don't have the time. So I'm probably looking to like, you know, find a person to help me out with that and such. But I'm in Rochester, so that's kind of hard.
Okay, so you're a startup.
Sure.
Okay, so how many customers do you have?
Yeah, family, friends and family.
Okay, so you do have some like paying customers.
Yeah, no.
Okay.
I'm not trying to like, you know, get into the liability of getting, you know, people that bought and paid for the service and then like, Caelan, this sucks, I'm gonna sue you now. So I'm not quite at that point and such. I could be if like Drew found someone who's like, I love this, let's do it right now. But it's just not quite there yet in terms of
Yeah, fair enough. You're just still playing around and working with ideas and stuff. Because I also imagine you probably want to target a vertical. Because that's why I was asking around. Like it was meant to be a pointed question of like, who are you targeting?
but probably
Like,
real
if-
estate businesses. I have a
Oh,
lot of
okay,
experience
gotcha.
there.
See, that makes a lot of sense.
He's going to a lot of real estate events actually this week and what he went to last week, looking at, you know, what they're saying and such.
Like, put it on your website. Like you should
Yeah.
say for real estate, like it's a lot. It's a lot easier to start a business if you're more specific about who you're trying to deal and you tailor things to them. And you already have experience with this. Like you said, you got the
Right.
Home Depot and Lowe's data that you pull to get like pricing information for them, for their costs and stuff like that. Just.
Yes, the reason why I haven't done that yet is because he is going to other events and I don't want to like someone to just read, oh, this is only for real estate companies and just like leave. I am gonna put case studies on where I actually like, you know, show how I've analyzed real estate business and such. I have also done this for like an education business, tutoring business.
So once you get your first customer, that'll be the vertical you target.
No, not necessarily. The market data that would show like, you know, what people would find the interest in this kind of tool may not show that real estate is the necessity. There's probably actually a lot of existing alternatives and such to
For real estate specific.
correct, because it's just a, well-defined industry. Maybe something more newer, like, I don't know, crypto or something like that would maybe be, yeah, I know, right? This, the most recent industry that's popped in my head, maybe like
Just
AI.
the current
Yeah.
grift is AI, just.
I know it is. Yeah. It used to be trading. We're very happy that that's gone away because now we don't have to deal with any of it. Okay, yeah. Any other questions?
This really, is fascinating.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, it's really good. What I'd be interested in seeing like, what does it look like to massage these various data sets, especially the left-hand side of the, not the, well, I guess both of them are fairly structured. I was thinking like the more unstructured things, like what do you do to get them into something that is reportable?
Yeah, so sometimes outliers sneak by,
Yeah.
right? And I don't. There are ways that I can try and build that out and fix it and everything like that, but that's just not quite currently what's happening. There's been a lot of development in the finance world for algorithmic trading to connect to these data sources and such. I'm in contact with that community, and they've been the guiding hand to gaining the necessity to access these kinds of reports. R is very there's a lot of academics who are doing, comprehensive research for cause effect that they need, to have tens of thousands, millions of data points in order to make a cause effect relationship. And so they've actually built the connections to those kinds of databases. Yeah. So I don't have to do nearly anything in
Okay,
terms
so you're
of,
really just pulling in specific data and combining it in novel ways.
correct. Yeah. There are some things where I actually have to do some of the work myself, because the way that it gets aggregated is just not useful. So companies that IPO, when they are IPOing, there's no database that I have an API that I can talk to without paying a couple thousand to get that information from. And because it's a legal document that they file to actually do the IPO, there's people that read it and then evaluate it, pull out the numbers for you. And there's a new site that puts that onto their website. So then I scrape that website to get that information rather than trying to
They
read.
scrape Edgar for you.
It's not Edgar. Yeah, it is. Sorry. Yeah.
Yeah.
Scrape maybe is, they actually probably physically read it and then
It's legal to scrape Edgar.
Yeah.
Because I was working, my brother he used to work for a consulting company, PwC. And I was helping him do that.
Yeah,
Because
freedom
it's
of-
totally cool. They're okay with it. You're
Freedom
allowed
of
to.
Information Act, right?
Yeah.
Everyone gets access to this information. Reason why I say it is because they actually try to use complex legal jargon so that you can't just pull out a number and attribute it to that metric. And
Yeah,
so
that is the big problem.
Yeah.
Also, at that time, certainly pulling out tables automatically was really hard. Everyone was, it's literally HTML. So, or whatever,
XML is
it's a
their backend
It was
for
a,
it.
it was a precursor to HTML. I'm talking about the raw, this was several years ago.
Okay,
So
yeah,
this is-
yeah.
This is several years ago.
Yeah.
I don't know if they made it nicer. SGML, I think it's called SGML, an older person. Yeah. No, yeah. I'm looking at Josh.
Yeah, no,
Josh is
yeah.
eye contact me. But someone might know, it was a precursor to XML.
Yeah, for some reason, SGML brings to mind vectors.
Well, same for me, and I don't know why.
Yeah. But
No, I think it's a different thing. It's related to XML. It was XML ended up winning. So them switching to XML makes a lot of sense because it was hard to parse because it had some weirdness with they don't have head tags or there was a lot of you can do whatever you want in terms of actually closing basically open parentheses, in XML. If you open up a tag, it's really hard to I had to make a custom parse.
Okay, yeah. Yeah. Did you want to see
sure.
what
Yeah, it's
one of
always
those looks like?
I'm always interested to actually see the code, how people accomplish things.
Oh, okay. I guess yeah. So here is what I go to when I'm trying to evaluate how they are, how do I actually get this information? So they provide a document where they give the functions that I would then use to query the aggregate database. and everything. There's probably more on the back end, which I
Oh,
could show you
I'm sure.
on GitHub, right?
Yeah,
Let's see if maybe they have, oh, I think actually, I don't use CRAN to actually check the code because it's super
yeah.
old and clunky and,
Package source code right there.
yeah, is it this one? Yeah, package source, .gz. Can I even open this probably? Let's see. Hopefully I can get it in a text file, but yeah, so, here's like the R script they're using to actually connect to Edgar and such to actually query the information. So it's a function call
Yeah.
saying, okay, you're going to input the end user, the SIC number and the filing year into this function called get business description. These are the options they can put in with the F type here. There's some like data standardization that they try to use so people don't put in nonsense and query nonsense and such. And then let's see, where are they actually querying the data? This is probably more standardization, everything like that. Okay, it looks like they're building the directory query here. Try catch, this is probably a HTML parts, here it is. So this is what they're actually using to query. So it's XML, right? They're actually
Right.
using XML to get this document.
HTML is quasi XML.
Okay, yeah. I'm not too familiar with either languages. Again, no common-side degree here or anything like that, but I can understand what's happening and where it's happening. Yeah, and so here then they're just doing more, data standardization, like how do we actually get what they're asking for in the business description of a file, which is what this code is, get business description. So yeah, that's what they've used to build that kind of information. Yeah. That's what it looks
Yeah,
like. Yeah.
it's interesting to see R versus the other languages that I have experienced.
You're probably object oriented a lot.
Yeah, oh yes, definitely very object oriented. But it's like I've seen like Ruby is the most obscure to me. Like I've
Okay.
tried working through a couple of Ruby projects and I just don't get the syntax.
Especially you can't get the syntax because the whole point is a lot of ways is it's meant to be extensible for
Yes.
DSLs and stuff like that. Like Rails is sort of like a sub language
Okay,
of Ruby.
Yeah. but yeah, no, it's interesting because I obviously heard a lot about R.
Okay.
And I didn't know, I hadn't really had much exposure to it.
Okay, yeah. So R is functional. I've been like thinking a lot about this, how do you like reconcile object oriented versus functional, what it means and everything like that. And what I've come up with in my colloquial definition is that when we're using a functional language, we are trying to look at the connections between data objects, if you will. We don't care about necessarily what the object itself is, but how we can link them together and get those two points talking to each other there so that they can come together and actually facilitate a transfer, if you will, of information between them. And then object oriented is very like static. It's right there in the name, but it cares mainly really about what actually is happening inside that specific object because they care about how are you talking to the components of the machine in order to actually facilitate optimized data transfer and such.
There's some degree to which Python you can more.
Yeah,
or less
pandas is
you-
functional, right?
Yeah, you can more or less program functionally in
Yeah.
most general purpose.
Yeah. The creators of R and S, they originally wanted it that way. I think it's because they're like math oriented. In math, we care about the transformation, we care about the function. We don't necessarily care about
Yeah,
what we
that
use to get there.
functional is definitely very closely related to math.
I think primarily lack of side effects.
Yes.
Yeah, but R definitely has side effects though.
I'm sure, I don't know anything about R.
Yeah,
but
yeah, neither do I really.
Okay.
But I know it has side effects.
And with the object oriented stuff, you're looking at that data encapsulation. So you're combining the data that you want to worry about along with the function, it's like operating on the data.
Yeah.
So everything's bundled together in one coherent, object.
Okay, yes, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, like building a whole class hierarchy for different types of objects and some behavior from one overlaps with the other. And like one that's common between them type of thing. Like it's like sort of like modeling abstractions is sort of what object-oriented programs for, rather than like input-output mapping and knowing like, oh, I don't care what the state is, like you've seen stateless.
Yeah, I have a background in applied mathematics. I had to like handwrite functions and like go through the calculations of how things relate to each other. This is why I believe I was able to easily pick up R to actually develop, my
Have
program.
you used
Oh,
any
yeah.
other functional languages?
So say that again?
Have you used any other functional languages?
Excel.
Yeah, like a good,
Oh my God.
a hot one's Haskell.
Dude, no one ever says Excel as a function.
It is.
Yes.
The most
but it
popular
is.
programming language on planet
I-
Earth.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah, Haskell, Lisp,
Yeah,
Lisp is awesome.
okay. Yeah,
That's a mind.
I think.
But Haskell's and Lisp both have awesome things to offer, not the same thing. But like Haskell is more like what he was saying is like no side effects. That's like real hardcore no side effects.
Mhm.
Everything's lazily evaluated, so you only actually perform transformations when they're needed and stuff
Okay.
like that. Versus Lisp, which is more like code as data is the general idea. Like macros are the sexy thing in Lisp. So it's, I mean, we're computer science people. We
Yeah.
can sit here and talk about programming language.
Yeah, some of this is going a little bit over my head.
Okay.
Oh, you're good.
But yeah, no, I probably heard them somewhere, and I am just familiar of an abstract view and concept of it. If you showed me the physicality to it, I'd probably be able to pick through it and
Lisp is
understand it.
impractical for sure for fun.
Yes.
Okay,
I've seen only one major application written in Lisp. And that was GNU Cache. GNU Cache?
No, I didn't know that was made in Lisp.
Yeah, it's basically the quicken of the Linux.
Huh.
Last I knew it was all Lisp.
I always think about the most popular Lisp application as being Emacs.
Oh my gosh.
Right?
Probably is, yeah. Anyway, we're saying these are things you might be interested in checking out.
yeah, I'm constrained in my ability to like.
Right.
You're already doing applied
understand,
mathematics.
and-
It's already
and
You're
learn
doing
a language.
algorithmic trading. No,
Yeah.
also learn Haskell. It's
Yeah.
I'm also actually in a master's program right now.
Oh, that's cool.
Right, I'm constrained by the business world time. I don't have a lot of it to devote things to that. But yeah, I am open to like, if you were to tell me, hey, you want to check out this language, actually do this part of your program because it'd be useful for it in the long run. I'd absolutely keep that in my back pocket and like follow along in terms of what necessary technology is needed for it because I'll eventually get to that bridge and need to cross it. And I don't want to like fall.
And I would say that the only thing that really comes to mind, like, I think that you have the two high points covered with R and Python. The thing that you might run into at some point is asynchronous.
Okay, yeah,
And asynchronous is a challenge in Python. Something like JavaScript
Way easier to learn.
would be
JavaScript.
easy. It's got a broad user base, and I have used that in a Python project to introduce introduce more asynchronous processing where I couldn't do that with Python.
okay,
And
yeah,
if you're doing web development, you are unavoidably going to run
Yes.
into JavaScript. It's not a.
Yes, yeah, JavaScript is unavoidable. But yes, for the back end, if you need to do processing, you're still going to want to use Python really as a data language
Mhm.
because JavaScript is god awful as a data language. But for a workflow and like asynchronous state management, it's great.
yeah. I saw that Django Ninja is defaulted to asynchronous and such. I'm assuming
Oh, yeah.
asynchronous.
And the asynchronous is baked into Python now.
Okay,
But
It's okay.
yeah, but
It's-
there's
it's
still
okay.
some fundamental aspects of Python that make it not as friendly to the asynchronous world.
okay, yeah.
No, they're supposedly removing the
working on
gill. Removing the gill is like we're hurtling towards.
Yeah,
it.
we're working on it.
So.
But yeah, that's the only thing that I would say, keep an eye out for.
Okay, is asynchronous about like the timing of when things load in?
Doing more than one thing at a time.
Okay, yeah. Okay. I'm familiar with that with like using, parallel core structures in
Yeah,
order to
exactly.
run multiple scripts at the same
Yeah.
time. Okay, yeah.
Async is sort of like a subclass for that. It's like a certain way of looking
Okay.
at it.
Yeah.
Yeah, because R is single core, so it's actually like really,
Art does support more than one. I mean, it just requires a lot of work, right? You're saying it doesn't support it at all?
the language is originally developed off of single core usage. And so
Right.
there is a package you can use to actually use multiple cores in a machine. You actually have to call them. It's not done automatically. Yeah. So a lot of work needs to be done.
Same thing in Python. You
Yeah.
have to, I mean, you can always be like, okay, I'm gonna write a module in C and whatever, and you can do anything you want, but yeah, kind of a similar story in Python. That's funny.
Okay.
They both have that limitation.
Yeah.
So you also do algorithmic trading in your
Yeah.
day job? That's cool, man.
We do like a long time frame basis. This is a big company, so to speak. They don't need to care.
You're not like doing high frequency trading.
Yeah, no. That is something I've looked into and everything like that. With the resources that we have, it's just not feasible. I know people that do. I go to conferences and meetings with them and such. They use something called I don't even remember. I think they use C,
C++.
right, as a variation of it. But there's actually something called K, I think it is.
K and J and yeah, there's a whole bunch of like
Yeah.
array specific programming languages that
Yeah.
are made just for it's used a lot. It's like a replacement for Excel.
Yeah, super fast, apparently.
How does SEO work with languages like that?
As search engine optimization.
Yeah, I gotta look up J.
Yeah, no.
That's a very good point.
So in the beginning, when I was training Google as my algorithm to like search things on the internet, I always had to type R programming language afterwards.
Yes.
It now
Ours
no
is the same
longer
problem.
has to do that, so I don't actually have to worry about, typing in programming.
Yeah,
R
it knows
language.
you now.
I do have to type R still, but it does know what R is, thankfully, in a abstract concept thought. But yeah, you're right. SEO, R has been terrible with dealing with that, and I believe that's why maybe Python surpassed it, even in like the data science.
Ours newer. I think.
So S was invented in like the 80s,
Okay,
70s,
so.
and then
alright, so
R
they're
was
they're
built
about
off
the
of
same.
it.
They're about the same thing.
Yeah. But Python has just grown
Yeah.
spectacularly large.
It's
so I
very
do believe-
accessible.
Right, I do believe that's why.
Yeah, if you want to know like a good pragmatic choice, like you already, like he said, you already picked good choices.
Okay, thank you.
Python is like, again, it's not really the best at practically anything. Like it literally isn't the best at anything, but it like there are libraries already made for almost everything as
Right,
well. So
yeah.
it's very convenient. Just like, oh, I want to access this thing, and someone already wrote a library, and you can get it done.
Yeah.
Really quick compared to doing all the work yourself.
Does anyone use Julia?
I've heard. of
Julia,
it, but-
Julia's awesome. Julia's great. Like Julia's like provides like a smooth like transition from like more of like a dynamic thing to where you can like, like have static arrays and stuff like that. It's sort of like it's relatively smooth slope. The
Where's
thing it does,
Julia
like,
from?
it's based off of JIT compilation, right? It's like pretty fancy JIT
Okay.
compilation.
Who developed it?
It's very heavy scientific stuff. So it's like,
Yeah, I never used that. I mean, I knew of it since its inception.
it's based off the Julia set, like a thing in mathematics,
Yeah.
right? It's like a math, that's what the name came from, I
Yeah,
think. But that's, Jupyter Notebooks is Julia, Python, and R.
Got
Okay.
it.
Turn.
Okay.
Yeah.
No, really?
It is, yeah. That's what that, yeah, look
Oh
at it,
my God.
yeah.
It took me long enough to realize
I think-
why it was Python.
I think Julia was first. I could be wrong,
Yeah.
but I think that Julia was the original inception of it, but then it, yeah, worked in the Jupyter.
Gotcha. Speaking of notebooks, have you used notebooks?
Like Jupyter Notebooks? Yeah, there's some classes that I've taken where it's like, hey, use this to make this report. If
Your
you
markdown behaves very similarly.
Yeah,
Yeah,
the thing is,
no,
R Markdown is
yeah.
if you're a competitor. If you're on
Yeah.
team R, like you
Yes.
like R Markdown.
It is useful for when I want to like host a server to run a script inside like a Jupyter Notebook. I think, have you guys run into that capability? Oh yeah, that R Markdown doesn't have that, I can't actually run
Yeah,
in an existing,
Is in that realm of like literate programming we were talking about
Yeah.
earlier.
it literally is literate programming.
Yeah. but-
Literate programming is, if you don't know what we're talking about, it's like, there's like really popular computer scientist called Donald Knuth.
okay.
And he sort of started this thing, literate programming. The idea is that you can have this document, just like you're literally doing it. That's why I'm explaining something you're already doing. But so you can have those code blocks where you have like the different types of programming, and then interspersed between them, you have prose that you're writing to describe what's going on.
Narrative.
And it's sort of like an abstract or philosophical thing. Where,
Okay.
like, where you can have, literally, you can be generating artifacts, like in your case, you're generating documentation.
It's kind of
with
flipped the
code.
comments on its head.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, exactly. It's like comments to the nth degree.
Right.
But yeah, and then
Your,
also
your
you can,
comments are your code blocks.
yeah, and then also you can do cool stuff, like some people like literally like will like build a C application, for example, and then they'll be like explaining, like they might be doing some fancy application specific stuff and it's ugly C code and they want to explain the crap out of it with tons of comments, and then they'll like literally be like compiling and also generating documentation for the code off the same file. So there's like all kinds of cool stuff like that.
Yeah, if you were to look at like my code, I do some commenting and everything like that, but I try to like this entire block has next to nothing in it. I know what it's doing and everything like that. I'm very familiar with it, but I haven't commented.
Generally,
on it.
my point of
So-
reference is if I have to come back to it and think about it for more than like 3 seconds, I put a comment on it. It's
Yeah.
like, what did I do here? What is this?
Yeah, the other thing is that takes time for me. I don't share this with a lot of people or have to or anything.
Well,
so-
I do it strictly for
Yeah.
myself because I know I'm gonna have to come back to this.
Yeah, you save yourself tons of time coming back and be like, thank you, Evan, for explaining that to me 6
Yes.
months ago. Good
Yes.
job.
Yep.
So you don't have to relearn.
Any other questions, comments? I have questions for you guys. Though.
Yeah.
I've never
Fire
met any
away.
of you.
Yeah.
Can I start with you?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I've been organizing this for well over 10 years.
Okay.
I work here, I'm a developer, I do just about anything you can imagine from SQL to JavaScript, infrastructure, all this stuff.
Mhm.
So, yeah, and this is my passion, this is my creative hobby,
Yeah. No.
looking at it.
Thank you for hosting it.
Yeah.
Some cities, they try to start like R groups and everything,
Yeah.
and they just fall flat on their face because there's like,
Running
it's
a
lot
group
of-
for 10 years is a big
Yeah.
challenge.
Oh, yeah.
No,
It's hard
yeah,
to be
no, I was
consistent.
like, well, I really enjoy it, but it definitely takes some effort to get some talk every month. It's always, okay, what are we gonna do this month?
yeah, it's like wrangling cats.
Yeah, for sure.
You. Hi.
My name is Rich.
Nice to meet you,
What's your name?
Caelan.
Caelan?
Yes.
Pleasure to meet you. What do you want to know?
Who you are, how you fit in the group, maybe, or what's your background?
Oh, well, background is, your science degree from, how much I talk about that junk, but it's, software engineer.
Okay.
With Dylan?
Mhm.
Hi, Dylan,
You guys are coworkers?
Yeah.
the boss.
That's your boss.
Yeah. I got to see him in real life today, which is kind of cool. Yeah. So, yeah, so I'm a software engineer by day and I just normal geek by night.
Yeah.
And been doing that for decades. That's pretty much it.
And
But-
you-
What's that?
Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
I don't know, what were you gonna say?
Oh, I was gonna pass them. I thought maybe they were.
Oh, that's
Yeah.
it. I'm done.
Yeah.
I do have a tendency to ramble.
Okay.
I keep on talking and talking until someone tries to stop me.
What do you guys work on?
That's a great introduction to
Yeah.
Python, but.
Oh,
Yes.
yeah.
I always enjoy it when you introduce the meetings because it feels so much more official.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you. Yeah. I gave it enough time.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, so my name is Alyssa. I used to work as data analyst, business analyst, project owner, product owner, and recently Scrum Master.
Mhm.
And I was just interested to come and check some of the networking here and listen about your project, of course. And I can tell you this is quite interesting
Yeah.
for me as well, because I used to work for the company which were doing the data analysis and data products for the big corporations that we're talking about.
Right.
On the tools like Power BI and Tableau, that's what I was asking you about. And actually, I have a question for you.
Sure.
Do you provide some documentation for your product from the business? Because I'm looking for it like from the business side. Like as a business owner, I would like to understand what your data is. How your data, where did you take your data from?
Sure. Yeah, I don't provide that off the bat.
Do you know you plan to?
Yeah. I mean, I did those three main sources like Fred, Edgar, and then like a hodgepodge of alternative data sources. that is like what the main data sources are.
But is there a data model behind it? Probably it's maybe in the future, it's not gonna be that simple, it's gonna be more complicated, so that. Like general user would like to go and see what is behind this, okay, you show me some data, and I wanna know how did you build this data?
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, so where's the base?
Okay, yeah, yeah, I mean, I have these files and such, which I've used to generate it and everything. I probably abstract them so that it's like in a simple, readable document. I don't want to give too much of the secret sauce away for someone to just like copy it, open source it and everything. That's not what I'm interested in. Because what I am asking for is the business owners themselves to provide some of that data, which I can then use to compare against other businesses. And so that's gonna cost money and such. Was that a
No,
Okay.
It's an alarm that I always forget to shut off. During this meeting.
yeah, so I definitely like, provide that kind of documentation. Like I have a list of, the sources that I query from and what packages I use to do that.
Is it not just from the packages, but like from the business user perspective, I would like to know, is that a valid? How did you combine it? So how did
Oh,
you
okay.
calculate it? So then I can see that, okay, for me this valid. Yes. Why then I want to buy it from you?
Yeah, yeah. This is using FAR accounting techniques, financial accounting and reporting. It's a pretty established industry. So all the publicly traded companies, they have to report how much money they made to the government when they're publicly traded and such, so that they can distribute it to investors. I'm using a lot of those metrics and such in the finance industry that have evaluated that FAR accounting to like make that determination of why that metric is valuable for this specific financial aspect of the business and such. So that documentation does exist. I could like aggregate it, and so it's curated for someone to easily read and whatnot. But it's following like generally accepted accounting principles for the micro data. For the macro data, that's coming from the government. They spend a lot of time aggregating all that information. I'd probably just like direct them to Fred's terms of services or whatever, and how that information is collected. And they actually have parts of that underneath each metric where they describe how that data was collected and everything. And then for the alternative data, that would require a lot more work and such, but it could be done. And I would hope to do that, yeah, sometime in the future. Does that?
Actually, if you're gonna put some other people in the project too, definitely get that.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
they understand.
Yeah, just from the
Communication.
beginning, because after that.
Okay, yeah, yeah. I guess it's all up in here and it
Yeah.
comes together
This
pretty
is, this
easily.
is, this is the problem usually.
Okay,
Yeah.
I
yeah.
mean, the non-government ones are probably the much more sketchier ones. I mean, there's like public stock market data, there's like EDGAR, which is the SEC,
Mhm.
and then like Fred, which is the Federal Reserve. So those are all trusted institutions, but yeah, for like Reddit.
Which is the
it's
main.
way different. Yeah,
right.
that's the majority of the most important. actual
Yeah.
data.
Yeah, and that's the main data, and that's the most important and such. And it also even come from the businesses themselves. So there will be some validation that's required to like looking into, yeah, is that number actually accurate, reported, and good? I'm hoping that the average parlays any extremes where, yeah, I accidentally like find a bunch of clients that are just committing accounting fraud in their financials, and I suddenly have a crapshoot of a database. Probably not going to happen, but it is a possibility. And so, yeah, being able to validate the information and vet it, if you would, is something that I'll definitely incorporate. I'm very small and such, and yeah, the reason why I was using students to like talk to people about this is because most people aren't familiar with corporate finance ratios, which are what we use to evaluate financial accounting and reporting, which is what accountants use to build accounting books and such. And so, yeah, like I said, people aren't familiar with that. I want to like give like a personal touch of someone being able to easily explain it to you. And so there's also, yeah, a couple of other business reasons why, but that would, I hope, help solve when people are looking at this kind of report and seeing how that information is coming together, that their consultant would be able to explain it to them about how it's getting done and in what ways it would be useful for their
So the
business.
point is to not be down in the weeds. The point is to make it accessible.
Absolutely, yes. I like wrote in written descriptions for each metric for the actual report. So like how it gets calculated and then like what it means, so to speak. And I did that for each one. I haven't done that, I think, for the macro, or excuse me, I did it for the spend categories, but not for like macro and all
You
third
could pull
data.
that probably from Fred too. I think they have explanations.
Yeah, they have descriptions.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can query that from Fred, yeah.